daycare center that they had, but it was a small class. You know, the teacher didn't care. They don't have rules like they didn't have rules then like they have now. So I started kindergarten, and when it came springtime, May, and they were having the maypole dance, I got to be the May Queen because I was the youngest when I was a little girl, and my mother had time to make me a pretty dress. It was green cotton voile, and it was just beautiful with lace and everything on it, and I was the maypole queen that year. Well, I thought I was pretty important, but that was the highlight of kindergarten until I got just a little bit older, but by that time I was learning to read. I had been learning to read before I ever went to school because my grandparents read to me, and sometimes we would memorize the stories and know right when to turn the pages, so we had everybody fooled. But
very clever.
First grade was a breeze, and I thought the kindergarten teacher was the only person on the face of the earth that was any good, but I made up my mind I was going to be a teacher because that just looked perfect. My mind was changed once later, but it went back to the teacher again before I got through. And I stayed there 2 years in kindergarten, and then I was ready for first grade and breezed through first grade. I just loved that teacher too. And trouble was I was always being curious, and when I wasn't being watched, I would start to investigate something, and one day I followed the kindergarten teacher into the first grade class, and I fell over a chair and cut a big gash in my face, and they all thought I was going to be marred forever, but I wouldn't let them sew it up because I could see them coming with that needle and I was going to scream. So they said, all right, we'll let you have a scar on your face. So that taught me the lesson to behave myself. And it didn't always work, but by second grade, I think I must have been a nuisance. And we were going to go down to the beach to visit my grandparents for the summer. They had retired. My dad's parents had retired at the beach, and so my mother asked if it was all right. She had been a teacher herself, and she was a real good friend with the principal, and he stretched rules quite nicely for her. She did a lot of PTA work too. But anyway, she took all the books that I had to have and was going to teach me everything I needed to know to go into the third grade the next year. That was all right with me, except that when I got into the third grade, the teacher wasn't my parents' friend like the other teachers had been in some of the higher grades, but she was a local dancing teacher, and my parents didn't think it was necessary for me to take private dancing lessons. And so those of the kids that took dancing lessons in the third grade were the ones that were teachers' pets, and the rest of us were there to see what we could do to make it miserable for everybody else.
And pray tell, what did you determine to do?
Well, I started doing a lot of things like passing notes and telling other kids the answers and getting the answers from somebody else and leaving papers on the floor. It wasn't really very funny, but I did sort of line up the ones that I would like to have killed later when I was the teacher. But that was third grade, and we managed and we got along okay. And some of those kids that got in trouble along with the rest of us were friends when we were in the 8th grade too, but the dancing students weren't by that time. Anyway, third grade is one of the nightmares of my life. And then fourth grade, I liked that teacher. She was great. She was a music teacher, and for all of school. And we got along fine. But it was just about this time this is another nightmare. In the third grade, my dad's parents my grandmother had a stroke, and she was very ill, and Grandpa couldn't take care of her down at the beach where they were, and they were retired, so it was decided that my mother would go down there and my grandmother would take care of the kids at home, so my brother and I wouldn't miss any school. I guess my sister was involved there too by that time, but they went down to the beach, and it was about 6 or 8 weeks that my mother was gone during that time. And school wasn't real good for me then. I guess it's an insecurity that comes when Mama's not there, the head of the household. And the grandmother finally decided about the time the weather got hot that she wanted to come to Bakersfield to stay. And so they moved her up there, and it was bedlam for a while. And my life was not the way it had been, a routine but fun. And anyway, eventually the grandmother died, and we decided that Grandpa shouldn't go back down there and stay. He should live in Bakersfield. And then we took the beach house for summer to give him a rest if he wanted to stay in Bakersfield, which he always did. I don't blame him. But anyway, we would go to the beach in the summer, and my dad bought the lot next door, which was our baseball diamond. And on that lot had been 3 trees, first base, second base, and third base. And first base and third base had worn out and bit to dust, but second base was a beautiful apricot tree, and it stayed there right in the middle of the lot. And we built my mother the dream house that we had everything in it that she would like to have. It didn't have air conditioning, but it did have an attic, and it had a cellar, and it had enough room so that you could even expand, and it had central heating and plenty of windows and doors, and a big porch on the north side of the house and a porch on the front side of the house. And Dad had the garden he wanted, and there was a grape arbor in the backyard where my sister could have a trapeze and I could have a swing, and my parents could have a hammock if they wanted it. Of course, we were always falling out of one of these things. It was fun. We had a great time with that house. My sister and I shared a room that had everything that was perfect for 2 girls. The trouble was, each one of us wanted to be the boss, but it didn't work that way very often. The yard was great, and we had a big garage at the back, and the laundry was out there, and there was a washing machine with a wringer, and there was an ironer that went on where the wringer was, so that you could iron the sheets and pillowcases, and that was my job to get out there and do that. By that time, I was getting enough to work a mangle, and one of the things, all the kids in the neighborhood got some kind of jobs where they could do something for some other neighbor that didn't have kids, and we got paid for running errands. It wasn't very much, but we learned a little business that way. My brother got a job delivering milk for the milkman, who was a friend of my dad's, and of course, any place else nowadays, so the kids would have to be of age 16 or so to get a job and get paid. But if you were old enough and responsible enough, you could babysit for somebody that needed the afternoon off. And if they had a grocery store, maybe you get an ice cream cone for it or something like that. But we all had some kind of job that we did. And kids nowadays don't have that. They have to have organized sports. And sometimes it's hard to understand that. We also had, by the time we got to junior high, we had to walk to school if it was less than a mile, or less than 2 miles it was. And so we had to walk to it by the time we got to 7th grade. And of course that was another thing. We could do errands along the way coming home in the afternoon. If Mom had thought that, well, she needed something at the bakery or she needed something at the drugstore, why, she'd call and leave it on for us to pick up on the way home from school because it was through town. Another thing I didn't mention was the telephone system that we had in those days. It was really a good gossip source too, because we were on a party line, and the other people that were on our party line, of course, you only used it for real important things. But if you went to the phone and you heard this young woman on the other end of the line talking to her boyfriend, you listened to see what they were going to say. And this was fun too. If you didn't have anything else to do on a rainy day, you could just take the telephone. There was another woman in the neighborhood who's had 3 kids the ages of the kids in our family, and they were all boys. And she was deaf, but she was an excellent lip reader. And so she would go down to the biggest hotel in town. By that time, they had some nice hotels in Bakersfield. And she'd sit in the lobby and she'd pick up all the town gossip. And then you knew if Mrs. Harlow was driving by and she saw my mother out, why, there'd be a conversation. And it was fun when you heard the ladies, if they came in the house and gossiped, you could hide behind the door and listen, and you got all this stuff, and whether you knew what they were talking about or understood it or not was not important. But it was fun.
I don't think things have changed much these days. It's just the way that people get the information.
Well, I had a kid one time in school. I said, what's the difference between definitions? What's the difference between listening and hearing? And